in TM at a very young age, and at a time when you were certainly the only kid on the block who was meditating. You were probably the only person within miles and miles who was meditating.
That's right.
So tell us about that. I mean, how
Well,
did you come to even hear about it?
Well, I actually became interested in meditation because I was interested in being more spiritual, and not intellectually spiritual, but truly having the spiritual experience, which a lot of us wanted at that time. It was the 60s, and we kind of needed some kind of support that we couldn't get from our culture. And a lot of us turned inward in maybe the wrong ways with drugs and things. I realized that if I was going to get it, it was inside. I had to go inside. I was actually living in Manhattan, and I went out to visit my brother who was in LA. It was my brother Patrick. He was good friends with Peter Wallace. He had a very profound experience that led him to India. And he was with Anandamayi Ma, who was a very great saint, female saint. He spent 6 months with her, and she sent him to Maharishi and said, you know, you need someone who speaks your language, who understands your thinking, who can really give you the guidance you need. And he came by and he said, what are you reading? And I said, oh, I'm reading about meditation. And he said, oh, I have just the thing for you. And all the books that I'd read, it was always so complicated. And when Peter explained it to me, that there's just a simple practice that deep within each of us is this area that's unbounded, that's happiness, and that's creative. And you can tap into it and bring it into your life. When he said that, I knew I'd met my destiny. That was exactly, he was saying words that I already knew.
You were 18. You not only were interested in meditation, you started the first yoga studio in Boston.
I opened the yoga school in 1967. There was nobody doing yoga, but because Mia, my sister, had married Frank Sinatra, I was always trailed by paparazzi. And so I got a lot of publicity, and a lot of people came. I mean, I had over 600 people going through the school, I mean, coming regularly and everything. But anyway, going back to Boston, yeah, it was because of Swami Satchidananda. It was his school, and he was a great yogi. You know, it was a privilege to be around him. But you know, Maharishi, he taught meditation, and he was aware of our modern mind in a way that he could give us something we could use in our lives. He is the only one, if you go through every single text, any, you know, sage or anything, that explains meditation. The stages, you know, really clearly explains what's going on, stress release, all of that. Nobody really goes through it that way. I mean, the Yoga Sutras, you know, kind of explains it if you know already, but otherwise nobody does that. For me, I needed, you know, I couldn't just do this thing. I had too much doubt or fear. But Maharishi did say the reason for that is because of our minds. He said, he couldn't get away with just saying, do this, do this, do this, because we would say, well, what happens when this and this happens? So he had to explain everything, and that's how it all came out. But we've got this incredible technique. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. There is nothing out there. I also, before I found TM, I would go to the Buddhist, it was just somebody's apartment who was a psychologist in New York, and we would all meditate. But nobody knew what they were doing. They'd say, okay, now we're going to meditate for a half hour. And we'd all close our eyes. And I'd be thinking, well, what am I supposed to do? You know, no directions.